because I want to see some change too. See, that's the other thing. I want to see some things change. Now, my opponent very clearly came out and said on several occasions, but one right in front of me and the Mayor's Association in Shelby County said, I don't want to change a thing. And I believe that. He likes how things are. I want to see some change. There's a lot of things I want to see change, but some of the big ones are, I want to see a sheriff's office where inmates don't die. And, you know, that's a tough thing to come out and say publicly because you're going to get attacked for saying something like that. But it's a fact that over the past 8 years, 3 inmates died in the Shelby County Jail, or as inmates. 3. Not 1 where you're scratching your head going, what's going on down there? Not 2 where you're saying, wow, what's happening? But 3. That concerns the heck out of me. Because the prior 17 years since that jail's been built, 0 inmates have died. Something's going on here. You got to ask yourself a question. Any person with common sense would say, what's going on? The only thing that's changed is that administration and some of their policies and procedures. That concerns me, and it should concern you too, and everyone in this county. Why? If you have a brother, a father, a sister, a son, a family member, somebody you love that does something they shouldn't have done. They're not an evil person, but they made a mistake and they end up in that Shelby County jail. It happens. Now you got to ask yourself, are they coming home? Should we have to ask ourselves that question? No. That should be a given because the sheriff's job is to make sure that we look after those inmates' safety, right? We're responsible for it. Now, I'm not saying anybody down there specifically is responsible for those deaths, but they should be accountable. And if they are not accountable to the system, they need to be accountable at the ballot box. That's a very important thing that concerns the heck out of me. So that's one thing. I want to see a sheriff's office where inmates don't die. The other big thing is I want to see a sheriff's office that partners with all the other agencies. Not just law enforcement, but all other agencies there are. They're currently isolated. They've isolated themselves and created an empire for it. And it's time that that goes away. Because crime doesn't know any border. It doesn't know, oh, I'm at the city of Sydney right here, and over here I'm at the village, or they don't care. They're going to do the crime wherever they're doing the crime. Those agencies need to work together to facilitate a stronger Shelby County area in law enforcement. I've got a lot of examples where they don't work together, and if you want to talk about those offline, we can. But I promise to make sure that that's one of the first things I do, is try to bring those agencies back together again, whichever ones they are. Bring them back together, work together, because I don't have the baggage that the current administration has, right? And I'm a communicator, and I will communicate with them, and we'll sort those things out. I would actually like to see what's called, I don't know if you guys have heard this from me or not, but you probably have, an exchange program. How many of you have seen before, a student exchange program, right? Well, I know the McGrills over there. Their daughter Heidi went overseas, right? And then they had some folks come over and stay with them. Isn't that a neat concept? Why is it that we couldn't have an exchange program with the Sydney Police Department where their dispatchers come over and work a week or two with us, ours go over there and work a week or two at the same time? Cross-train, understand how somebody else does business. Why is it that city police officer can't come over and work with our deputies and our deputies go over there? If you do that kind of thing, it starts bringing people together, right? Great outcomes from something as simple as an exchange program. Just a thought. So, back to my list again. I also want to see a sheriff's office that creates what's called a sheriff's chaplain program. That's important to me because several sheriff's offices out there today, Erie County, Franklin County, and the list goes on, have a chaplain program. What it is, ordained ministers have the opportunity to come in, put the uniform on, we put a little rocker on their sleeve that says chaplain. They're one of us. They become one of the sheriff's office. But they can have privileged communications with the deputies as they're riding along, or with the police department too. And they can be there for crisis counseling and grief counseling. Because I got to tell you, I've been doing this for 30 years. and very active at it. Seen a lot of things you don't want to see. Most of us in this business, we don't come home and talk about it either. And it builds, right? And it builds. And if you don't have an opportunity to let that out in some form or fashion, it brings you down. It puts you in a bad spot. Unfortunately, there is a stigma in mental health. And Mike will be the first one to tell you this. He's even testified at the state level and done videos when it comes to mental health for them on how that's important. It is important, but if you can't go that direction because of the stigma, why don't we have a program in-house where you can talk to someone? They can ride along with you. We're not forcing it on anybody. It's not forced faith, but they're there for you. When you get ready to go to a door where you just get a phone call that says, hey, somebody just died in a car accident. Those death notifications are one of the worst kind of calls you can get. If they're horrible, you get trained, but it still doesn't make it any easier any time. But it's so much more comforting going in with somebody who is a member of the faith community, walking in with you. They know how to handle the grief counseling. They're there for those people. It makes the whole situation healthier and better in those notifications. So there are many opportunities to use a Sheriff's Chapel program. And I just go back to, why don't we have one? I will when I become the next Sheriff of Shelby County. So these are just a few examples of the things that I would like to see in our Sheriff's Office change. One more is when it comes to the jail, there's been folks that are telling me that they're vaping down in jail. They sell them these vape pens. Did you know that, to vape in jail? And they're also getting takeout pizza, or they can order pizza from Little Caesars, the $5 Little Caesar pizza. They get it in and they charge them $12 for it, whatever that amount is. Okay, but as I start looking at that, and then I start looking at the jail deaths, I'm saying, what's changed? These are some of the things that have changed. I'm not saying they're horrible or bad, but I'm thinking, if you've been watching the news, that vaping is bad for you, right? Have you seen how the statistics are going through? Even my opponent has put out a news article that said vaping is bad for you. And it's his program that he started for vaping in jail. So I agree with him that vaping is bad for you, and we don't want to see any class action lawsuits come up because one of the inmates 3 or 4 years from now decides he's going to file one because he's got bad lungs, right? So these are the issues that I want to attack, the things that I want to see in a sheriff's office. And with that said, just remember these things: 30 plus years sworn law enforcement, 20 years as a chief executive officer. So I've got professional management, education, financial experience, which is what the chief executive office is of law enforcement, as the sheriff. I'm not running to be the chief jailer or chief detective, but the chief executive officer of law enforcement. And last but not least, honesty, integrity, transparency, and accountability. Those 4 words I started with. Those are at my core. I believe in those. I live my life by those. And if you look at my history and talk to people who know me, you'll find out those things to be true.